Welcome to the BWI Live Show. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. It's the bye week, and we're discussing Penn State's latest loss, this time to Iowa. Nate is cold. We'll address that here in a second. Don't you have your heating on, Nate? Like, what's going on?
I'm really cheap, but that's...
He is obnoxiously loud with his hand rubbing and blowing and such.
Yeah.
Too. But
yeah,
that's what we come to.
Yeah. It disrupted my intro, which is fine because it wasn't really going to be anything magical. But we're talking about a bunch of stuff today that I think fans want to know about. We're going to give a job search update for Penn State football for the coaching position, ranking among the open jobs, and of course, we'll have a brief review of where we are in the coaching search. And then, of course, it's the bye week. What does that mean for the team right now? What are the plans this week to get better, improve, etc.? We'll give you some updates on what we're going to see tonight. Spoiler alert, the schedule's a little bit different than normal. And, of course, Penn State versus Iowa will be recapping the show. So let's get to all that today on the BWI Live Show. But first, our guest, as you heard him earlier, Nate Bauer, and Sean Fitz. Fitz, what's going on with you this week? How have you been kind of reacting to this? Somebody asked me when's the last time Penn State was under 500? It's been very rare in the last, even going back to the sanctions era. Penn State never really went below 500, except for I believe one time this year. In the last 15 years or so, I think it was the COVID year where they were under 500. How have you been mulling over the situation Penn State football's in right now?
Yeah, you just got to look at the immediate, and then you got to look at the big picture. I think we're doing a lot of big picture stuff right now on BlueWhiteIllustrated.com with the coaching search, and obviously that's priority number one, right? Because it's all about setting yourself up for the future. You take a look at this current team, and yeah, there's stuff to play for. I think I would say more individually or team based than there is for, hey, this thing's pretty much done, right? Like you're looking at 3 and 4. Bowl game question is number one. Can you get to 6-6? Which you got the number 1 team in the country, the number 2 team in the country is your next 2 games after the bye week. That's not great. But how do you handle it? How do you turn it on its head? And that's you kind of lost the plot here with this one. Iowa was a tough one to stomach, especially when you're up 21-10. And you turn around and you see some of the potential. Like, okay, you see some of what you thought the team would look like with the running game. Katron carried 28 times and had a lot of success. I think the offensive line played well enough to win. And Ethan Grunkmeyer, for what it's worth, I think he was fine. I know people are quick to kind of jump out on him, but I think he did a pretty decent job for all the circumstances there. But I think you're finding yourself kind of running in circles because of this coaching search taking up so much of your bandwidth as a fan. That the bye week comes at a good time for everybody. I mean, I know that's the cliche and that's the tripe, but it's a good time to reset for everybody and maybe just grab reposition your hands on the rope if you're Penn State.
It's interesting, and Nate, I want to throw this to you because we talked after the game, immediately following the game, and Nat, by definition, that is a very emotional show on the postgame show. People are angry about Penn State's loss. They feel it directly, and there is no downtime. And that's part of the part of the show is to have a place for those emotions. And yet there is this still, it felt like after that game, the same response to a team that had expectations. And I guess that's where I was pushing back, and maybe I didn't elocute it properly, is the team that had expectations lost 3 games and then fired their coach. Their quarterback is done for the year. Going into that game against Iowa, at least my expectations had shifted to, if this is a competitive game and they show heart and fire and they come close to winning, that is at least, on the merits of where this team is, I would have said that's a partial success. Obviously, this is a results-based sport. Nobody cares about that. But it felt as if the expectations were still where they were previously. So how are you, or how is this, what's the right way to frame this conversation going forward? As Fitz just pointed out, what is on the horizon for this team? It could be pretty brutal.
Yeah. Things have changed pretty dramatically.
Yeah.
From the start of the season. And there's a whole lot that goes into that. We are able to and do try to look at this through, as clear of a lens as we can. That's kind of the nature of our job. And so there shouldn't be any emotion attached for us. Right. And so we can say, I get it. I understand how mad people are going to be when I say this. Like Tony Rojas getting hurt didn't help Penn State's defense. Just didn't. Yeah. Didn't help. The starting quarterback, his season ending does not help Penn State. And you can absolutely say, well, Tony Rojas isn't the reason that they lost at UCLA. Valid. Drew Aller is not the reason that they lost to Northwestern. Valid. Like, that's fine. But when you compound a bunch of stuff that goes wrong on top of misperceptions in the first place of who and what this team is, right?
Yeah.
No leadership. But just flatly.
Yeah.
This is a team devoid of leadership, and then the leadership that it had, which was milquetoast at best, is also now gone. Right?
It's almost fake leadership more than, I guess milquetoast, as you said, right? I mean, there was an element of guys stepping to the front seemingly, and then you talk to people behind the scenes, and it's just like it's not really the case. Like, I think we saw a lot of that.
Just to be clear, you're talking about player-led leadership, like the team itself, the leaders, the players that you would expect to be the guys rallying on the player-led level. Were that was missing this year? Are you saying like systematically also like coaching leadership is also this year was non-existent? Because like the leadership, I guess like that word kind of spans a lot of different things, and I'm curious as to where you think like the root of the issue was here. Because it sounds like you're talking about player-led leadership.
Both. It's comprehensive. Okay. It's comprehensive, right? Look, like nobody would say that James Franklin was not impacted by not only the loss to Oregon, but how it transpired. I think he would own that. I think that the program would own that. I think that some of the changing faces in the program, right? Mm-hmm. Like it. If you go through the coaching staff, who are the guys that are truly rallying players? Like Dan Connor is kind of new to the job. Danny O'Brien, and this is not to like have a laundry list of these guys can't lead. It's just the established voices, right? Jaywan Sider was like a big part of that from that coaching staff. James Franklin, obviously, in the past, was a big part of providing that leadership. And just again, when you combine the circumstances, like there's a certain element of this where 2020 comes back into play, and you can look at how that season transpired with all of its flaws and all of the foundations of this wasn't going to work in the first place. But what are the commonalities? That team had very terrible player-led leadership. And then also James Franklin, his hands were kind of tied, right? And I don't think he was at his best self given the circumstances of that year. Transpose them to this year, and I think you saw a lot of the same issues. So now, when you combine all of those things that already existed before they lost to Oregon, before they lost to, it's just compounding. It's just one after another, and it gets more difficult to find success under those circumstances.
Yeah, gotcha. And all of that led to Penn State now being in a coaching search, and that's where we're going to get to today, is discussing the Nittany Lions and their need to find a new leader. Just as a kind of starting point, we need to establish where Penn State's program is in the hierarchy of college football overall, which we've tried to do here on the BWI Live Show and on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel over the last couple of weeks, but also in the immediacy of the coaching options that the top candidates will have. And so here's just a quick straw poll across the country that we saw earlier. Penn State's job ranking. Sporting News has it number 1. CBS has it number 2. Florida is the team that they had over Penn State. I'm not going to ask you guys to rank it, but do you feel like this is the place to be for the next coach? Is Penn State going to be able to attract its top candidate, or are there going to be other openings that happen that allow other programs to leapfrog Penn State in this process? And the broader search parameters, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, is Penn State set up for success this cycle by getting out early, Nate? Is that still your view of like how this can shake out for them?
Yeah, I don't know that was my view at any point in this.
But sorry, that would be the view of why you do it. The view of why you do it, not necessarily your view, but the argument for doing it when they did.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I think Pat did it when he did, just because he saw it wasn't working and
wasn't getting better.
It wasn't getting better, and it was when you're choosing between a set of all bad options, it's gonna be a bad option. There's going to be bad results based on that. You're just trying to make the best of a bad situation at that point, and you have to make the choice, and he did, and there are good things to that, and there are very obvious downsides to that. A lot of this conversation currently is just premature, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to have an agreement in place with a head coach that is actively in college football right now. They're just not before the end of the season. Right. You're going to test those waters. You're going to put out your feelers. You're going to have back and forth guys that are going to take themselves out of consideration that will come back into consideration, guys that are in consideration right now and are dealing with that process that will take themselves out. Right. And it's all based on how the next 2 months go of the college football season. That's not to say that Pat Kraft is only choosing guys who finish strong, right? You're looking at the whole data set of what these guys' careers have been. But at the same time, if Marcus Freeman, for instance, goes 10-2 and gets to the playoff and has a contract that gets put in front of him by Notre Dame, and everybody else is coming at him at the same time, you just I describe it as 4 orbits, right? And all of these things are happening all at once. It's Penn State's deal. It is the deal of the coach that they want. It is the deal of the school that the coach that they want is at. And then it's the deal of everything else that's happening in college football. So programs that either have made a move on their head coach already or will make a move on their head coach so that they can line somebody else up. It's just, there's too many balls in the air right now to really expect kind of immediate dividends out of this for Penn State.
Yeah, not immediate for sure. Fitz, I guess I just want to get your opinion on where things are headed for Penn State. You had a hot board update recently. Of course, go to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com to check that out. You can subscribe right now. The head coaching search is a big damn deal. So as we update this and as we get you information, it's going to happen first over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. You can join just for $1 for 7 days to try us out, get that information, read the hot board, read what Fitz in detail has to say. And that's a great way to get all that information on where things are updating throughout the season. Of course, the Blue White Illustrated message board is where there's a lot of information as well. But Fitz, what do you think about where we are right now and, kind of setting the board where Penn State is navigating at the moment?
What Nate said about the timing on the decision and a lot of that compounded very quickly and it fell off the table really even quicker than that. You're looking at setting yourself up for the long-term coaching search, which can be good for research, can be good for, I guess, not so much negotiation, because I'm with Nate here. You're not going to sign a Power 4 head coach, especially one that's still in the mix for the playoff right now. But it also gives your fan base a black hole to talk about nothing for 6 weeks, and that's dangerous, right? Like you're looking at, well, nothing's happening, so this guy must be failing. And I think that's the thing to get over. Nate has said on our board several times, it's like, prepare yourself for the long haul here, because this is a situation that you're walking into and you're going to continue walking. This is not going to be a sprint to Penn State gets a coach and starts hitting the road and recruiting and getting up for the transfer portal and all that kind of stuff. This is going to be a long played out scenario where you're not going to get answers, but you're going to interpret those answers as no's. And if that makes sense, you're going to run yourself ragged here, like following this search. And I think that, absolutely. Can they screw this up? Absolutely. I mean, everybody can. And we've shown that at some really, really top institutions that have national championships. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean through 8 days of this search that it's all gone haywire and they're just going to, fall back to Matt Rule. Nate, you're redder than usual. What can I get from you?
I got two things. Now is a great time to sign up at Blue White Illustrated. If you want to run yourself ragged, now is the time to join us. Two, and I'll let you do the full promo, Deep Frank. I went to dinner with my family on Sunday night, and it was nice, right? We get away, put the phone down, whatever. I got a text from a good friend of mine who said, "Franklin to Florida!" ! And I was like, what? Dude,
it happened that quickly?
I was just okay. And then I checked Twitter. I sent him a text back and I was just like, are you saying this or are you just talking? And he was like, oh, I'm just speculating. And I was like, dude, you can't do that right now. I love you. You're one of my best friends. You cannot send me a text that says Franklin to Florida ! Right now. Not appropriate. Do not do that again. I love you. Good night.
And I apologize for sending it, but we move on.
And to put the final point on this, the Penn State football coaching hotboard version 3.0. So there's been 2 of these already. It's already at 157 pages on the message board. It has 150 pages just on that message board thread with over 500,000 views.
And I just put up
people running ragged.
New buzzworthy on the site as we speak.
Very good.
The mechanisms.
This one from Corey Smith in the chat. She says, is it true that the staff and players don't get to decide if they stay? And that's up to the new coach. I know the answer, but I think it needs to be made clear they must be asked to stay. That isn't a guarantee. So Corey wants to know about the status of the people that are on the current roster, both players and coaches, and they're this is the most tenuous situation for anybody in this conversation. We've talked about this. I said this on the postgame show. They're already fired. Everybody that wanted Andy Kolnicki, Joey O'Brien, Marcus Higgins, Deion Barnes, doesn't matter who, they want all these guys fired, right? They want all the blood. They want all the pound of flesh.
Joey O'Brien, I think, is okay, but yeah.
Sorry.
Fired.
Danny O'Brien. Going too fast. But that's what happens when you fire a head coach is everyone is now in transition, and it's just waiting and running out the clock. So what do you guys know, I guess, about the let's focus on the players, because I think the coach is a little more obvious. But the players are, and I don't mean to be crass here, they are an asset, potentially, to the new coach. But also scheme fit matters, and situation, all those things matter for the player and for the coach. So what these young men, what kind of situation are they in, Fitz, now, given everything that's happened?
Well, Corey asked the question and then answered it for us as well. That is up to the new coach. That is their discretion. Part of what they will do when approaching a job like this is do a roster study and understand what they know about this player, what they know about the room that they're walking into, where you have to balance where your portal priorities are going to be and where you're going to basically adjust when you get there and have those conversations and say, I just don't think it's going to work out here. And I think you saw that kind of ham-handedly with North Carolina this offseason. That was a situation where, they walked in and kind of went with their chest out. Now, can you do that at Penn State? Sure you can, but probably not as much as someone with the bravado of Bill Belichick. It's going to depend on what you're walking into, what that guy is going to have in terms of feedback for guys that he wants to bring with him from his previous institution, and go from there. And you're looking at a scenario where you've got, okay, so as is, if James Franklin was coming back next year, and just forget the Willie or won't you portal stuff, like Ethan Grunkmeyer's your starting quarterback next year. We'll just go with an example for that. That's very much up in the air. And you take a look at how some coaches have been successful by bringing their own quarterback, by bringing their own guy in, and that changes a lot of things. And so, yeah, you've got to do basically what they told the commits to do is look out for yourself. And then when you're ready to have that conversation, i.e. when the new guy gets here, that's when you come back around and you figure it all out. Again, it's easier to stay than it is to go. Like that is number one. That is for commits, that is for current players, that is for some coaches. Some coaches are ingrained in the fabric here, some are, for lack of a better term, outsiders. So you're going to find yourself leaning to stay naturally, but at the same time, you're not going to stay if you're not wanted. So yeah, this new guy's going to come in. He's going to do everything that I think a lot of this work will be done before the official announcement of the coach. And by work, I mean legwork, not the conversations. It's very interesting to follow because you can find a roster that has a lot of what's going on. And by the way, the last time Penn State did this back in 2014, incredibly different world. Like you're bringing, he's bringing what, 8? I think that was even before they expanded to 9 or 10 assistants. They were bringing 9 assistants with you. Now you've got the ability to expand that meeting room to however many staffers you need. So you're not beholden to them. So that means if you're looking to keep Mark Dupuis, the assistant wide receivers coach, yeah, you've got more of flexibility there. So yes, I think there's a little bit more to work with on that end, but yeah, it's still all up to the new guy, and that's going to shake some people because they're just not too. I mean, we're covering this team every day, and we're going to be surprised by some of the moves that are made. Yeah. And hey, players got to protect themselves. They've seen it in the last couple of weeks. Players got to look out for themselves. Coaches got to look out for themselves, and what happens from there is anyone's guess.
That sounded actually a little more optimistic than I was expecting in terms of like, just, you make a great point of even if you don't keep somebody long term, but you do want to massage the transition and you keep certain position coaches or assistants, GAs, structural and people that are structurally integral to the program, that does provide, I guess, a little bit more of like the value you hold to the university and to the football administration and just like the stability over a completely clean slate. That used to happen, right?
Yeah, it's like keeping Terry Smith here would be a big step for recruiting, for sort of continuity there. Bringing Terry Smith with him was a wonderful move by James Franklin, or not with him, but adding him to the staff that he was bringing with him was a wonderful move, sort of an olive branch type thing, especially when Penn State is such a Letterman-driven program. It's such a history-based program. You want to connect with all that. Now you've got Dion, you've got Ty Howell, you've got all these Dan Connor, all these Trace. I can't stop naming former players that are in the program. Now, that was an effort. Like that was a concerted effort by Penn State to bring those guys back in to not only harvest their knowledge on football, but also connect with the fan base, connect with the Letterman, connect with the donors, connect with everyone that wants Penn State to be what it used to be. And that is how you meet in the middle with that. So I think the new guy does have some flexibility there. I'm very curious to see what the portal will look like, because you can make arguments for mass exodus. You can make arguments for, well, just roll it out because it's the new guy is going to be, say you're an offensive player. The new guy is Eli Drinkwitz, who has a really good offensive reputation. Oh, well, maybe I want to stick around and maybe I want to try and make this work because scheme matters so much to these guys. Like there's not enough importance placed upon when you're making a decision as a recruit, when you're making a decision in the portal, how much scheme will drive you to the next level. You can find players everywhere, but hey, you can find players a lot easier if they're flourishing in the system. And that's what you're looking for as an offensive player.
Yeah. I love when somebody says scheme is important. Also important in our discussions and our lives regularly is Antifragile Brewing Company. Had no chance to go down there myself on Friday. We had a message board member that said, hey, I'm going to be in town. Is anyone going to be there? And I said, well, now I am. So I had an awesome afternoon with Braden at the Antifragile Brewing Company. But guys, Nate, tell me about your view of our sponsor here, Antifragile Brewing Company.
You were at Antifragile on Friday?
Yeah.
I was at Antifragile on Friday.
Not the same time I was.
Huh, how about that? Sorry, I missed you. Best beer in State College, bar none. Constantly rotating board that has, literally on-site brewed beer that is, I can affirm, excellent. just really good beer. They've got a bunch of hazy IPAs. They've got imperial stouts. They've got lagers. They've got all the beers that you could want to drink. John's is out front. If you were watching on YouTube, you can see that little tent there, making the best cheesesteaks in State College. I don't use best lightly, but in both cases, I mean it sincerely with Antifragile in their operation. So, they've been a great supporter of our show, and we in turn, try to pay that off by spending more there.
I think they make money on this advertising deal. I think they've made money.
Yeah, it is. They really
just from us.
Yeah, bamboozled us with this arrangement. But you know what? Honestly, it's worked out for me too. So thanks as always to Antifragile for supporting us.
Yeah, and we'll be there every Friday before home games. So that's going to be early afternoon because I got to get to the gym afterwards, and we've got our families and lives and things. But we're making it a habit that before home games, I'm going to be there every Friday afternoon, usually around 1 o'clock. So make sure if you're coming into town for the Indiana game, come say hi. We'll be there and we'll be hanging out. Guys want to talk about the bye week?
Families?
We're in the you guys
what?
No,
you guys have.
You guys knows I brought my kid there last week. He loves the free bread, and he's been asking for it ever since.
It is really good bread. It is really, really good bread. Bye week. They're in the middle of it right now, so it's not like a bye week preview. They're currently trying to figure out the pieces that fit together and how to rebuild this program in the middle of the season. We're going to have practice tonight, so check out BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. We'll have highlights on social media, things like that. What are you guys expecting, or what are you guys looking for after that game on Saturday, tonight at practice, and to hear from Terry Smith afterwards? Fitz, what kind of comes to mind of like, this is the first thing I want to know about when we go to practice?
Yeah, I think you look at the personnel plans for last week, and as we saw during the UCLA weeks, okay, so for example, Tony Rojas gets hurt on a Tuesday. They practiced the rest of Tuesday and Wednesday with Dom DeLuca in there, and then they fly out on Thursday. So turning stuff around and making major changes doesn't happen, when you spin the top here. They made the Franklin decision last Sunday. They have a week of practice. They actually canceled practice last Sunday. And you're kind of finding yourself in a situation where you can make decisions now. Like there was only so much you could do to get ready for Iowa, but now I think with a bye week, with the opportunity to do this, for the fact that they're staying in and not going out recruiting, which is more about the situation than it is like standard operating procedure, then yes, I think you're going to see. We're probably not going to see it because we get a short snippet of practice tonight, but you're going to see more guys worked in. We saw Kobe Howard and Tyson Denmark a little bit more against Iowa over the weekend. I think that like focusing on that exact scenario is missing the point a little bit. But looking at the roster of a roster where nobody else can essentially check out and redshirt anymore. Like I think we went down the list. The only non-freshman that's available to redshirt would be Tony Rojas, and he's going to take that red shirt. So you have a roster intact. Now you got to keep those guys focused. You got to keep those guys involved and keep those guys going, especially the guys that are playing for their future, i.e. the NFL draft. That's very important. So you do have an opportunity to continue making incremental progress. Is it going to show up against Ohio State? I think everybody's kind of like gritting their teeth for that one, and then Indiana the week after. But you can work some things. You can get some new guys in there and work with some different combinations. And I think that that's available to Penn State this week. Like I said, will it change a lot? Probably not. Will it change how you approach things? Because if you remember during Terry's first press conference, it was first press conference, he was asked, "Are you making staff changes?" And he said, "None this week." And I think that was a result of, hey, got a game to play in a couple of days. We got to be all hands on deck, and then maybe make some decisions. Then I don't think that, they're firing anybody, just nobody's out of the directory right now. But you can make some philosophical changes more so in a bye week than you can in a game week.
Yeah, and that was also a question on the message board today. It's like, why isn't Penn State UCLA? Why haven't they fired these people? They're obviously incompetent. It's like, well, even in the situation of UCLA, they didn't do that immediately. It was a process where the new head coach had to assess the situation and then made those changes. One of them on the Tuesday before a game. So like not necessarily even immediate with the decision to fire the offensive coordinator. I get Nate. What are you looking for this week?
Yeah, well, one thing, which is, and unfortunately for him, I would not expect to see Jackson Smolik after what happened to him. Obviously, he left that game on Saturday with an injury. And so, if the quarterback room doesn't look or the group of quarterbacks, I should say, doesn't look very, very thick. And I think Fitz, you said Beckham Kritza did not make the trip to Iowa.
Yeah. It was those two and walk-on Jack Lambert that went there. Has been running the scout team. He's been around for a while. So and Kritza has missed a ton of practice with that injury. Yeah. He's been wearing a splint on his right arm, which is actually his throwing arm, which is important in this situation as well.
Yeah. So it's probably not great at quarterback for Penn State right now. And I would expect that to manifest itself and be seen on tonight at practice.
That's you've seen, I think it was Florida State a couple years ago that had a true freshman quarterback. This is maybe 5-6 years ago. Had a true freshman quarterback starting because all of their scholarship quarterbacks were injured. I was like, how do you even get to that point as a program? And here it is. This is how you get to that point as a program.
They're still better than Maryland was back in the day when they were starting. I think Shane Cockrell moved from linebacker to start at quarterback. That was the top. That was also the year, or maybe close to the year, that the Iowa running backs all got hurt, and you were down to like the 7th one or whatever. But
that is a question of like, why are we continuing to do this at that point? When you don't have a quarterback and you're moving a linebacker to quarterback, it feels like this is all performative at this point. The reason we're playing these games is because there's a TV contract at this point when you have that big of a hole on your roster. Fitz, I do want to ask you about recruiting, and I'm going to ask you this in a very crass way, considering everything we just talked about with the coaching staff. What's the point of recruiting this week when these coaches, we just talked about, like, some of them may be here, a lot of them maybe not here. We don't know who the next head coach is. These players don't know what their future is with the program, and it's not like you can attract talent beyond the guys that are already committed and just trying to retain those players. But if you're a coach, like, also, if you don't think you're going to be here, why would you work hard to retain these players other than, like, you're paid to do it? Like, it feels like the spirit of this does, like, what's going, like, what, why, how, but why?
Keep going. There's more. There's where. So yeah, you hit it on the nose in terms of the coaches. They're still being paid to do this. Like, and they may be here in the long run, but you're still doing that. And you've also are kind of beholden to the responsibility to the kid. Like, you've built this relationship and you're trying to establish yourself as a person that you can come to for anything. And this falls under the category of anything. So, but yeah, if you're looking to go out on the road and we'll circle back around to see if maybe they'd send some recruiting guys out on the road, which I still don't think is the case, but like, you've already seen most of the commits in person. James Franklin went out during the bye week and hit Philly. He hit Pittsburgh. He hit a lot of the commits along the way. And a lot of these guys are already signed in terms of not signed finality, but paid accepted is what they call it. So there's a thing that if you pay your entry fee, which a lot of these guys have done, even guys that have decommitted, Troy Hune did it. You know, if you've paid it, you can have basically unlimited contact with the staff. That's why James Franklin went down to San Diego when they were out in LA, and you could spend time with them. You could actually see them together as opposed to just, standing on the side eating popcorn. So a lot of these guys are in that situation where you've got the ability to contact these guys as much as you want. But at the same time, they're not beholden to it. Like, they don't, just because they've paid the acceptance fee does not mean that they are like locked in, have to sign with Penn State. So it usually works out really well. This is the one scenario where it wouldn't. So that's kind of where you're at with that. But from a coaching staff, you're looking to these guys and you see the same verbiage on these tweets and stuff like that. I'm still committed, but I've opened my recruitment, which is, talking out of two sides of your mouth, but it's also looking out for yourself. And that's exactly what these guys have to do at this point. You have to say to yourself, okay, well, I do think that, Kevin Brown, for example, wants to be at Penn State. I do. I feel that way. I feel like he shut his recruitment down early. He visited a bunch of schools and he was just like, I want to play in my backyard for this in-state program, and I think I can be great here, just an hour and a half from home. Wonderful.
Yep.
But you also have to look out for yourself. Now, the new guy coming in isn't dropping Kevin Brown. Like, that's not like nobody's looking at Kevin Brown and saying, you know what, I don't know if you're good enough to play here. But
yeah,
at the same time,
but it would be going back to fit, right? So maybe the new system doesn't necessarily fit Kevin Brown for, however the style or what the offense might be. That would be a reason he might go and look somewhere else.
It could be fit. It could be coaches. I mean, you could bring in a coach that guy recruited Kevin Brown, and Kevin Brown may not have liked. Like, you're looking. Like, you're walking that wires as the new guy, and on the other side, Kevin Brown is walking that wire in the sense that, hey, I want to check these things out just in case something goes really wrong. But then again, who's waiting there to pounce? Ohio State's waiting there to host Kevin Brown. That's a big deal. Now, on the other hand, West Virginia is going to host him as well, which tells me, and this is connecting the dots, and his father played there, had a wonderful career there, played in the NFL afterwards. So I get the connections and stuff like that. But also, it's a pretty convenient trip to make if you don't want other schools to continue to push hard to get you to visit. And Kevin's a very, I don't want to call him introverted, but when it comes to the process, Kevin is a guy that doesn't care much for it. He doesn't want to talk to coaches. He doesn't want to do all this stuff. But if you fill up your calendar with another visit to West Virginia, a place that he's already familiar with, I think that kind of, it's kind of like boxing out some other schools without being right on top of it. So yes, going back to your original question, you still are recruiting because that's what you're paid to do. There are some guys that may think that they're going to be here for the long haul, especially the recruiting guys. I mean, the recruiting guys are incredibly valuable, but also they're seen as a dime a dozen some places. So, like, can the new guy come in and keep that connection via Letterman, via Terry, via Dion, via Ty Howell, Trace, all those guys? Or can you keep that connection via Kenny Sanders? Can you keep that connection with Alan Zamitis, who's the kind of best of both worlds there? So you have an opportunity to sort of put your best foot forward, but also be respectful and be the person that the parents in this situation, the parents of the prospects, thought you were when you were building this relationship, which is a credit to the character.
That's why you asked the question in a stupid way, because then Fitz answers it in a very smart way, and then we speaking of the best of both worlds, we get all the good stuff here from Fitz. Appreciate that. It was a really awesome answer. So now that we've covered the bye week and what's happening here, again, check out tonight BlueWhiteIllustrated.com for updates from practice. Let's get to the actual game, Penn State versus Iowa, and what we saw on the field and what we think we might see from this team going forward. Like, I don't know. Nate, I'll come to you. Like, what did you see from this game that you think the team can take moving forward?
Yeah.
That's why I went to you, because I like
Yeah. No, look, I thought that Grunk Meyer, are we gonna just call him Grunk?
Let's just call him Grunk. Yeah.
You can call him Grunk and Meyer, like Rob was calling him, but Peacock, man, that was
that was rough. That was rough.
That was rough.
No, I thought he acquitted himself pretty nicely, right? Just given the circumstances, that's a tough place to play. Kept his head about him, and certainly looked like what he is, which is a second-year quarterback with 13 career pass attempts before entering that game. But I thought Katron obviously continues to be good. It is a situation where, just offensively, realistically, they have not been good this year, and that's a problem that really just has not gotten any better. I do think it is. It's interesting, remains so, and there's a duality to this that they just don't have plays offensively. They're just not on the field, right? They improved that this past week. They had a couple of double-digit drives, right?
Yeah,
where they were able to maintain possession. I mean, actually, this might be the most that they have been on the field in a game this season. But like, they got to continue that. They got to continue
and those plays
that.
Yeah, those plays are going for about 4 yards a pop, which was kind of the frustrating part for Penn State fans and for stringing together a 12-play drive with a first-time starting quarterback. Couple things I just want to jump in here with because, doing the post-game show live, I'm doing my best to go off of what I see on film, but there is a little bit of feel, there's a little bit of vibe in some of that stuff, and I have a couple corrections I want to make. And honestly, I didn't hate the game plan from Andy Nittany. There was a certain freedom to it of he's like, well, I don't have to scheme around my quarterback in terms of I'm not trying to build the offense around Drew Aller, so I'm going to do whatever I want. And he went back to a 2-quarterback system with a running quarterback and got into some of the sets and some of the elements in his offense that I think helped the offensive line last year look a lot better. And that helps with blocking angles. That helps with where linebackers are positioned with not being so reliant on the jet sweep as a way to move the second level, but actual threats of option plays and a new quarterback and some of those surprises. The other thing is they did actually empty the clip with Ethan Grunkmeyer. I said after the game, I felt like they were playing scared of their quarterback, and the quarterback was just missing throws. So there's the receivers on critical plays, we're not getting open. But there were plenty of, I'd say there's probably 3 or 4 throws where Ethan Grunkmeyer missed an open receiver and either threw the ball somewhere else or just didn't see that player and either scrambled or made a misread. And there were a couple of misreads as well from Grunkmeyer. And I'm not trying to dump on him and say it was a terrible performance, but as Nate said, it was the performance you would expect from a guy making his first start with minimal opportunities to be on the field over the last 18 games. So just an interesting, what do you build on? How do you build on those things? Fitz, what did you think of the offense? And I want to go to I know that Nate said, don't expect the 2-quarterback system going forward. What did you think of it in the moment? And what do you think they can take from any of those things if they try and incorporate that with Grunkmeyer?
Yeah, I think you look at the game as itself, and Nate said they didn't run enough plays, but they did sustain some drives, and they did a really nice job of keeping themselves on the field, being able to do that. There was a 10-play drive, a 12-play drive, a 10-play drive, and a 16-play drive, and then an 8-play drive at the end there. So they did get, by comparison, I guess, more plays, 74 plays, which is probably, it's got to be a season high, right? It's got to be where they've been. So the
thing I said earlier was wrong. You can just say that. I was wrong about that.
You were creatively incorrect. Yes. Yeah. But you're looking at, okay, he's got more plays to work with, but there were less pressure plays. And I thought that part looked great. I thought that Ethan Grunkmeyer's short passing accuracy was a breath of fresh air. For all the good things Drew did, wasn't always his best thing. Now, did he hit everyone? No, of course not. Did he make every correct decision? Of course not. Did his receivers get open? Of course not. But you've got something to build on there. The 2-quarterback system, take it or leave it, especially when you don't throw with the other guy. You give him 11 plays, they're all run plays, and Jackson Smolik is not switching it up to Michael Robinson, and where you're like, okay, we know he's going to run, but he's still going to be successful because he can do this. And then all of a sudden he takes a helmet to the arm, and that's not great. But you've got some more elements of what he was doing in the Big 12. Then when the pressure gets on and things get tight, did not like a lot of that.
Yep.
It's so interesting to separate the decision from the call, because you look at the Penn State's decision to go for it from their own 40, I guess it was, late in the third quarter. I don't hate the decision. I flipping hated the call. I thought it was malpractice, especially when you've got Grunkmeyer signaling that he can't hear with 6 seconds left on the clock when the clock went dead at 15. People know this. Phil Parker is maybe the best defensive coordinator in the country. Phil Parker knows what's going on here. And that's where I'm looking at this offense and saying, okay, well, I mean, it's just, if you can't fill those little margins, then you're not going to be successful in the long run. And hey, 25 points, given what we've seen the last couple of weeks. Okay. With a new quarterback at Kinnick at night. Great. But that's not the ideal scenario. It's going to be 24 points. Not the ideal scenario when you're looking to essentially put yourself over the top, especially when it's a young player.
There were obvious moments where Andy Kolnicki got outcoached in that game. That's one where you're talking about like another gotcha. Like, oh, no. We don't know what's going on. And the tight end's on the center and gotcha. That it doesn't work against disciplined gotcha. Like, oh, you didn't see that coming. It's like an M. Night Shyamalan movie sometimes. It's like, you got a running gotcha. It's well, that's about 5 plays a game. So there you go. That's about what it is. You have a running back that was averaging like 5 yards a carry in a short yardage situation, your game on the line. Here's another one. You have a 3rd and 1 to extend a drive, and you're going to go with a QB sweep with your 3rd string quarterback, and your best runner is a lead blocker. If things don't go well, and they're not going to go well, they're not going to get blocked well, don't you want the guy who can break a tackle rather than just like, oh, we have an extra blocker in this formation? But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as much as having a guy that can create above the system. As we've seen, this offense needs to create above the system. And then we haven't even gotten into the passing plays yet. The final play of the game, where they give up an immediate cover 0 blitz. They try to roll the pocket away. It was a play that worked earlier. Devontae Ross did get open on the play, but the predictability of like going to that play again, knowing that they're pressuring and I don't know if there's a better play. Like I hate to be the second guessing guy of like, oh well, if you just run X play or Y play, it would have worked. But the one that I think was the most frustrating is the 3rd and goal with Ethan Grunkemeyer where he got sacked. And you look at that pressure. I wrote about this coming into the game. And again, if an idiot like me watches film and he's like, and is thinking like, man, Iowa really likes to cover 0 blitz or bring heavy pressure in these big leverage moments. I know they saw that because on a bunch of plays, they tried to have screens. They tried to get them with shovel passes and things like that. But instead of that, why not have a hot route on the play? Penn State does not have like an answer for a cover 0 blitz in the playbook in terms of like, if they blitz everyone, somebody needs to run a slant. Because like that's the number one way to beat cover 0 is just run to the middle of the field and throw the ball over the middle, and then you have an opportunity to make a play, and a huge play against the cover 0 blitz. But instead, Ethan Grunkemeyer gets hit in the chest by a guy with an immediate pressure and nowhere to throw the football. And like these obviously high leverage situations, Iowa won the end of the game with that one. They won that 3rd down. They won several of these 3 and outs where when it was time to make a conversion down, Penn State did pretty well in the game. Like give Ethan Grunkemeyer credit for scrambling and some of those things, but the most important ones all went to Iowa. And that to me, like you want to talk about coaching, like situational stuff like that. It's another example of that in this particular game where Penn State had a chance to win this game. Anything else on the offense, or do you guys want to move to the defense? All right, let's move to the defense. This one's a lot simpler to me. Run defense is still an issue. That defensive performance I thought would be good enough to beat Northwestern. That game performance, good enough to beat Northwestern. But obviously Iowa is a higher level of opponent than Northwestern. So I guess, Fitz, what did you take away from the way they played and kind of some of the adjustments they tried to make in this game?
I loved your comment you made on the board about how they need to go back to the complex stuff because the simplified stuff isn't working. Like this is where we're at.
It's worse.
Defense. It's worse. Yeah, it is absolutely worse because you find yourself out of position. You find yourself not athletic enough to make up for the for the misses and for the missed angles, and that's where Tony Rojas was so vital to this, is he could clean up a lot of things. And they have had some really good cleanup guys in the last couple of years, and they're not there anymore. And that's tough to stomach because you thought that, maybe Nittany could be that guy that could carry you. Zane, I think, is in a situation where it's a no-win situation for him. I mean, there's no getting around. Like, I don't know if the production he had in the first couple of years was as a result of the guys beside him catching people off guard, but now they're focused on him because he is a really good football player, and he's just getting he's finding three numbers on him every time, and that's tough to not comprehend. But it's like, because that's where you absolutely attack if you're an offensive coordinator. But that's tough to watch in the sense that he came back for a swan song, and now he's just getting buried. And a lot of it is not on him. I'll say that. Like, I think that, I think he could certainly be better, but you look at the scheme, the scenario, Penn State not strong up the middle. They're not worried about Alonzo Ford. I did think Xavier Gilliam did some nice things, but at the same time, nice things doesn't compute to full game performance, full game consistency, stability in the front. And then linebackers got to tackle. They're not tackling. I don't think it's much beyond that.
Yeah. And secondary safeties as well. You know, Zakee Wheatley had like a miss flying in like a missile on that final play because he's not the guy in position to make that play. But, you know, some of the tackling attempts from guys in the secondary, there's a certain level of like fundamental football as well. And I broke this down on Saturday. It's not just that like guys aren't sure if they're supposed to be the one plugging a certain gap. It's also that when they are then the player that is meeting contact, they aren't moving their feet. They aren't chopping their feet. Basic fundamentals, because they're unsure of like, are they supposed to be the guy in the gap? Which it's the only job you have there. Like, again, they've simplified the defense to like, this is your job. We're putting you in the position to do the job. Now, please do the job. Go ahead. And that even when they're meeting the runner, they are not meeting the runner with proper fundamentals, contact, violence, all those things. And it's just like I don't know how I don't know how you fix it. Like, I can't even put it into complete sentences because it's like so fundamental to football that there are certain mistakes that are being made. And Fitz, to your point about what the simplification has done is, if you're running just basic football and you're just simplifying things down to how everyone understands the game to be played, now you're putting players that don't have the physical capability to do those jobs into positions to be beat. Dom DeLuca taking on a guard because he's playing a more traditional style and not being blitzed or not being thrown at the line of scrimmage with anticipation and speed. Now you're playing right into what he can't do. And like they've tried to simplify things for Zane Durant, or just allow him to get upfield, right? So don't have him hold a gap, have him penetrate, give him a tilt so that he can run at an angle at where the ball is probably going to go. He's also not beating those blocks to the point where he's getting tackles for loss. We've seen them do that in the past, and so there are these. Okay, we've put guys in position to succeed, and they're not succeeding to the level to change the outcome. And then we put other guys in position where they are clearly not going to succeed, but the other people that we're trying to rely on, like we just said, they're not going to be successful in this new scheme either. So I don't know. This is the problem of changing midstream, is now you have like, do we go back to what we were doing before and we've wasted all of this time on practicing and getting better at that old system, or do we double down on this new system that has obvious flaws and like we're just going to play harder? And now, like, I don't know, the confidence they've sucked out of the defense in this pivot, I feel like now you got the worst of both worlds. And so like I personally, like I don't know where they go from this. Nate, do you think
I've got the answer?
Yeah, I know I'm not. So I know I just laid out like all that stuff. And this is always the problem, is like my manifesto rants go on to the point where I'm like, well, that was it. What do you think? And like I just sucked all the air out of the room. But like, no, I don't know. What do you do? Like, what do you do? I don't know what to do here.
Keep going. I think that's about all the options that they have, right? Is just, I don't know. I mean, look, some of it's going to be matchup specific, right? They're gonna decide what the best part of their defense is, and try to take something away from Ohio State. Like, this is the thing, is the next two games are Ohio State and Indiana. So tough sledding ahead. There's maybe a win in holding Iowa to how many yards passing? 68 yards passing. That's okay. That's good. It's just
it's also going to be the exact opposite next weekend, because
it's also like that was a choice for Iowa. Like they chose not to throw the football, and they're not good at it. Like, this was the best opportunity for them to win a game because they were playing a team with an equally inept quarterback. Like, I struggled to say like that's a good opportunity. That was it was a good performance by the secondary, no doubt. Like they clamped down on the receivers. There was very little time for the quarterback, or there's very little opening for the quarterback to throw. And they gave like half of those yards. They're like, go ahead, take those bubble screens, take 20 yards on a bubble screen across the course of a game because you're not running it. Like they were just formationally giving them RPOs all day. And so like
why have quarterbacks, and this has been a constant, including against quarterbacks that really can't run? Like why? What has the breakdown been? Is there a commonality spanning all of? Right. So at first, when it was Dante Moore did it and extended plays with his legs and that kind of stuff, and then Nico
lack
did
of contain. So it's a lack of contain. It's a lack of pass rush, and what it comes down to is an inability to get off blocks or to control the interaction. So, like, clearly Penn State doesn't want to allocate a spy to its resources. What they want to do is they want to cage rush and they want to control the line of scrimmage with their big physical defensive ends and their defensive tackles. But the problem is guys are either playing hero ball and trying to get a sack and running themselves out of the play, or, doing a half spin inside and then deciding to fully spin inside and giving up the edge, and then there's no contain. Or they're doing so many twists and stunts to try to get somebody free that they are pulling themselves out of the rush lanes, and then the guy who's supposed to replace gets beat. So fundamentally, it's just a lack of ability to control the situation and to be the winner in an interaction on the defensive line. That's the biggest problem with contain. And then, from there, who are you going to have as your quarterback spy? At this point, Amari Campbell's coverage, like, I think you need to make him a spy to get him out of zone coverage because he's doing some things that are frustrating to watch in terms of his analysis of where he's supposed to be and his reaction to stimulus in the secondary. So, yeah, there is no spy, but also their most athletic player that you would want to have as a spy, as you mentioned, no longer is playing football for them this year. So that's also a huge blow. I don't know that like Dom DeLuca as a spy isn't really doing what you want it to do in these situations.
Is it how much of and again, I'm just using this anecdotally, but like how much of those run, right? I mean, it's just been like, that's kind of the story for me defensively of this season is 40+ yard runs at crucial times. For opponents. Why doesn't everybody just do that all the time if you can get 50 yards every carry from your quarterback? Right. But two, what is it about situationally? Is it also Penn State's defense feeling the moment of having to make a play? Do you know what I mean? Like, is that why? Do you think are those fundamentals broken every single pass play, or are they broken in those circumstances?
Yeah, I think it's in those circumstances because they're high leverage situations. So the D line is trying to get to the quarterback for a sack. And in certain situations, like the problem is that like, you can make there's a case in every different scenario for why the quarterback got out, including like you're playing man coverage or you're playing cover 2 man. And so you've got 2 safeties. Anybody who's available to attack the quarterback is 15 to 20 yards down the field. Or you're in a zone and you do have multiple players around the quarterback, but the quarterback is just more athletic and gets free. Like there have been multiple reasons why it turns into a long run. And of course, like the quarterback situation with Gronowski, it was more of the quarterback run game. It was more of him being a runner than it was him being a scrambler. There was a designed run on a quarterback draw that was a long run, and then he messed up the read option and then had to run up the A gap, and Penn State just like the situation of that to watch from an X's and O's perspective was comical because essentially Dom DeLuca is trying to guard 2 gaps and there's a runner in each of them and he doesn't know what to do. So he goes to where everyone is flowing and suddenly the quarterback is in the other gap and then Elliott Washington misses a tackle and it's a 67-yard run. That sometimes happens when you have 9 guys on the line of scrimmage and 1 safety deep. That's what happens if you don't have gap sound football and your defensive tackle is getting washed out of the play by 5 or 6 yards. So yeah, like it has been a real problem, but it's not like there's a pinpointed issue other than they don't have a spy and they don't have contain on passing plays. Fitz, I do want to get your thoughts here on the defensive performance because I've just been ranting for like 10 minutes. How did you think they performed?
How did I think they performed? I mean, you lack. It's kind of a waterfall here. You once you find yourself out of position, then you try and press, and then you break down your fundamentals. All of a sudden, you're out of it. So that's basically where I was at. Now, for a spell there, I mean, you start to get some plays. I mean, the Key Wheatley interception was tremendous. I mean, that was absolutely what they've needed for a couple of weeks, and the ball did bounce their way a few times more this week than we've seen in the past. But overall, it's going to come down to tackling issues. It's going to come down to being able to contain and keep things in front of you. And by the way, what's a 180 from Iowa? You get Ohio State next week. Julian Sain's not going to tear you up as a runner. I think he's got just had his things open up. He's got his most productive day is 4 carries for 12 yards, and that including a 12-yard run against Washington. So maybe he skirts away for a first down on 3rd and 6 or something like that. But he's not a guy they're going to keep, and they're not going to put him in harm's way either. Like they're going to sit back there and say, hey, we got better receivers than anybody. We're going to go and throw around you. So somebody asked in the chat if they can make Ohio State one-dimensional. No, I don't think they're good enough for that. And it will certainly be the test that we've been talking about for the for the defensive backs, for the corners specifically. And Penn State isn't getting pressure to help those guys out. So yeah, damn if you don't, damned if you do, damned if we're going to have to watch that next week.
Yeah. And there's a bye week this week. They can formulate a new plan of some sort. Like, I think there is an opportunity for a reset to assess for the defense what is a good plan, and then try and build from there of, okay, how do we put the best players in the best position to succeed, and how do we access parts of our playbook or tweak them that will provide a more consistent result. And the extra time, I think, is important, but again, fundamentally, there are some issues here that I don't think you can solve just by scheme. So Nate, final thoughts here. What's coming up this week from Blue White Illustrated that you want to tell people as we get out of here?
Coaching stuff. We're buckle up. We're in for the long haul. So there will be, nuggets. I've really, and I told Fitz this last night. I'm going to try my hardest to not encapsulate the entirety of the coaching search into individual pieces and do more of the nugget stuff, because there are nuggets, right? Kind of every day there's something that's happening, but there's also, and this is kind of what I delight in, the mechanisms that are at work of a coaching search. And I think very broadly, they're not understood, right? Because I've been educated, right? I have been, over the last few years, whether it's looking for a defensive coordinator, obviously now Penn State looking for a new head coach. There's just a lot of different stuff that goes into it. And I am attempting with all my heart to explain what those things are.
It almost sounds like it's your film review. Almost sounds like it's, yeah, it's like it's the process. It's the mechanisms that cause the win and loss, and what people want is the result, Nate. I found that people, all they want to hear is like, why bad, why good?
Have you ever seen House of Cards?
I had to stop watching. It was so hard to watch. But yeah, pretty good in the early seasons. Yeah, but that's a good analogy. Fitz, from you, last thing. What do you got?
Nothing. Just stay tuned to the hot board. Stay tuned to this. We are trying to sort of filter out all the stuff, but as I said, it's going to be a marathon. It's not going to be, hey, this guy is leading in October 21st. That doesn't mean he'll be even on the board at November 21st. I think Penn State should get like a writer or something on these coach extensions that are going to come out. That, hey, some of that needs to come back to our NIL fund, but
yeah,
I don't see Jimmy Sexton making that condition. So we'll see what happens with the next couple of weeks.
All right. We'll be back tomorrow to discuss more Penn State football, what we see from practice, more bye week discussion. Of course, on Thursday, we're going to have the recruiting show, the landscape, whatever it is, we are going to describe it for you. So that's what's coming up this week from Blue White Illustrated. I'm Thomas Frank Carr for Nate Bauer and Sean Fitz. We'll talk to you later.